So now I'm going to be addressing another common question. Often people who come to the clinic and they're coming for physical therapy for, let's say, a pain in the shoulder, back, hip, or knee or something like that, the expectation is that that area hurts because it's weak. So you need to just work it harder to make the muscles larger or something like that. And then they come in and then we end up exercising often everything that's not that area. So then you may say, well, why in the world, if here's my problem, why would you work my arm? Or why would you work my knee below it? Or if my problem's up here in my neck, why are you working my legs? And things like that. And I'll give you a hint. It's not just that we want you just generally conditioned well. I mean, that's not a bad goal, but that's not the thought in mind here. We're working it because we have that goal of that place in mind. To help you out with this, let me give you kind of a little metaphor. So I want you to imagine if right below me I had a 300-pound box that needed to be lifted up. And I had the choice. I could either try to do it on my own accord, maybe make it more realistic, maybe make it more like 100, 200 for that matter, but you know what I'm saying. I could try to lift it on my own accord and think about how much my body would appreciate that. Or I could get 3 football players on the other 3 corners that could help me out with that task. And we're trying to think again, for the sake of my body, which one would be happier for my body? Well, obviously it would be a little more helpful if I had 3 football players on each of those corners helping me out there. So now let's take this to the human body for a moment. So we've got a good almost 550, 600, 650 muscles, and we got 206 bones in the body, all designed to help out each other when we're performing tasks of life, not just lifting, but walking, sitting, squatting, reaching, driving, running, whatever it is we're doing. We have all these different parts that are supposed to help out. Now, some of these places I say God makes larger than others, so like my glutes and hips and thighs and gut. Those are going to be the big football players, the offensive linemen. Some are smaller areas like the hand muscles and neck and feet, for example, things like that. They're more designed for finer tuning type of thing. But either way, for the most part, as you get the gist, these guys are all meant to be working not separately of each other, but all kind of contributing their own part to that task. So, if going back to the lifting metaphor, if I had 3 of those football players decide, I'm not helping you out, I'm out of here, I hate this job, I'm going home, obviously it's going to be a lot harder on me. So what we often find is the source of someone's injury is something kind of like that. So let's say, for example, someone had really tight hips and really tight, let's say, mid-back area. But let's say they were relatively flexible in their lower back, relatively flexible in their arm, something like that. So what will happen is, as we live throughout our life here, the areas that don't move, the hips and the mid-back in that example, are kind of like the football players checking out. Because when those areas are really tight and stiff, we're not using really well the glute muscles and thigh muscles of the hip, and we're not going to be using my gut and chest muscles that happen to be attached to my mid-back area there. So again, it's almost like those guys are saying, I can't do my job anymore. When something gets tight, not only does it not move well to contribute to that, but also the neurological contraction that comes into that is slowed down as well. So what does that leave then? Let's say I had to bend over to pick up that thing. That means my lower back and my shoulder arms, for example, are going to have to end up taking a lot more of that work because my hip area and my mid-back can't take it on really well. Does that make sense? So it's often the things that move really well that end up taking on more of the work, and they get the strain from overuse. Now, let's take that back to the lower back, for example. Well, God makes low back muscles this big, makes my glute muscles this big again. So once again, not only am I losing the football player as just a helper there, but I'm also losing a big one, a really strong football player that could be helping me out on that as well. So once again, what the key thing is, often those tight spots I mentioned often don't hurt because they're not doing anything. It's often the things that go to overwork that hurt. So in that example there, the key is not going to be to overwork the thing that's overworked. So if I had a lower back that's getting pain because it's getting used too much, if I go give you back exercises, I'm just working hard to the thing that's already working too hard. So that's why we would say that's not the thing to do. The thing to do is go to those tight areas that aren't hurting because they're not moving, get them moving more properly, and then again, now we've got the system doing its job and we take pressure off of all the other individual pieces that are under strain. So that's one thing. The second is what I call the leotard metaphor, which I explained in a different video, so I won't go into too much details here. But let's say again, you just kind of imagine I'm wearing a giant leotard, and sorry for that, between my head and chest and all the way through my legs and all the way down to my feet and things like that. Such that if I now have injured this part of me, well, the way the body often is designed to respond to injury is it'll tighten that part of me up to protect it. So you can see it from here, or maybe from the other side over here. So if I'm pulling this guy over here, and now it's hard for me to move that arm there, if I actually start contracting and using those muscles associated with that part, the contraction that works actually will serve to just pull that thing even further out of balance. But I may have this thing over here that might not mind if I move to work this arm. So maybe I can try to pull that into a better place using that. Or for that matter, if I had something in my back kind of pulled over here, maybe I could change that through this arm. Maybe I could change that through that opposite torso. Or maybe I could change that through the opposite leg or something like that. So once again, part of the other reasons why we're using parts of the body that don't hurt is we're using them to help pull into balance the things that are out of whack. So if something's jammed to the right, we might pull to the left. Something's jammed up high, we might pull down low. Something's jammed to the front, we might pull it to the back. Something like that. So those are the two big things to focus on when you're thinking about why are these people working a part of my body that doesn't hurt, is we're trying to, again, bring all those football players, those workers back in through those tight areas, especially the big muscle groups, something we call the power zones. And we're also trying to pull that leotard back into balance as well. So hopefully that helped you out.